very lightning. So before I go through the presentation, we'll start the presentation off. I just thought I'd spend literally 1 minute explaining who Clearview Traffic Group are. Clearview Traffic Group have been around since 2005 as an entity, and we basically have two brands within our group. There's Astucia, which are basically solar-powered cat's eyes as roadsters, which are LED based and provide 900 metres visibility of the road ahead, so significantly better than the standard cat's eyes you see on the road, and won multiple awards as a result of that, and featuring a lot of casualty reduction schemes across the world. Then we have our Golden River brand, which is more really to do with tonight, and that is our traffic data collection brand, whereby for the last 40 years, as of December the 1st this year, Golden River has been providing traffic data back to local authorities and highways authorities and road operators across the world, detecting over 250 million vehicle movements per day. So it's been around for a long time, got a very good history and heritage, and hopefully we'll talk to you a little bit about how things are changing in our space. So we've come from very much from an M2M space, whereby we've just been providing data back to our customers, or they've been using our equipment to gather that data via the various mobile networks. But now that space is moving and that space is changing, and road authorities and other interested parties are seeing very much that they need to engage with the citizen and give power back to the citizen, so empowering citizens to make those decisions about what's the best way to complete their journeys. So why is it a problem? Surely the roads are working absolutely fine. No one's ever been in any congestion, have they? So, and it's not Stephen's fault. I think what I'll just highlight here is some of the background really around the road networks and where we are and where we come from really in terms of traffic. So the DFT statistics lately show that on average every person in the UK completes around 650 trips annually by car, with over 2/3 of those being 10 miles or less. So people jumping into their car for convenience, not necessarily because they need to make that journey by car all the time. And car traffic has grown by over 87% since 1980, with now over 34 million vehicles on the UK roads and UK infrastructure. 4.4 billion passenger trips per year are made on the buses. And traffic has grown 84% since 1980, from 172 to 318 billion vehicle miles. So significant growth. And that trend is set to continue, with the Eddington report that was issued a few years back showing growth expected to be in the order of 30% by 2025. And at the same time, they said that congestion would probably increase your average journey time by over 54% unless we act now. So I think there is a bit of a problem here. There is seriously things we need to do, and technology has now caught up to give us the capability to respond to this. And the cost of congestion is often thought that somewhere in the region of £4 to £12 billion is what congestion costs the UK economy now, and conservative estimates put it at 22 billion by 2025, with it costing businesses directly more than £10 billion per year. So it is a significant problem that we need to grasp. But what do the consumers think? What do we need as consumers and individuals? What is it that we want from the roads? Well, the government actually did do something about this. In 2011, they conducted a survey, the last survey of its kind to be conducted. It's the British Social Attitude Survey into Transport, and it was looking at what people wanted from their road networks. And what it came up with is two main findings, really. People want reliability. More than anything, people wanted to know that their journey times were always going to be consistent timings. They didn't want sometimes, as happens quite frequently for me today certainly, that sometimes my journey into work is 35 minutes, sometimes it's an hour and a quarter. I'd be happy if it was 50 minutes, but it was always consistently 50 minutes. I could be much more predictable, much more productive with my teams, knowing that I could always get there in a certain time, and we could always arrange meetings to be at that specific time. I think that goes across the economy. The second thing that the report really highlighted is that people wanted greater efficiency from the existing road network. What people don't want is more and more roads carving up the current infrastructure and carving up our countryside. What they really wanted was road improvements on the existing infrastructure and the ability to make sure that we're maximising the capacity of the existing infrastructure. So when we look at how technology can enable this, we look at a bunch of technologies that are out there already today. Adaptive traffic signals. Now, you're not in this market, and it sounds very sad me talking about some of these, so I won't go into any technical detail. But adaptive traffic signals basically says it uses the flow of traffic and understanding that data provided by the traffic to really control the phasings of traffic signals throughout a city's infrastructure. And it means that you can optimize traffic according to the levels of traffic it's seeing from every individual traffic signal. And what does that enable us to do? Well, right at the moment, it's great for the road operators and the highways authorities to control the traffic. But really, we need to get that data back to the people who need that data most, which is the road user. And inform those road users via travel information systems, which is a posh way of saying via your smartphone apps, via gantry signs, via roadside messaging, and those sort of applications which are very much coming to the fore. Safer urban cycling infrastructure is a key area that is on the increase, and people want to have that ability to choose an active travel mode. So they want to be able to choose to walk or to cycle to work or wherever they want to go on their journey. But at the moment, the dangers of that are quite significant. 75% of all accidents involving cyclists happen on or near junctions. And we have no means at the moment to actually prevent those accidents from happening in a reliable way and give the cyclists enough time. And I've spoken to 3 people at the beginning of this evening session who said to me they all jumped red lights and on their bikes because they're just waiting and never being seen by the traffic signals. And so they take that risk into their own hands, and other people take that risk and follow them. There is a herd mentality with any form of travel, and other people may not be able to respond as quickly. And so that's why accidents happen. Following the Olympics in 2012, there was a massive uptake in cycling. But also there was a massive increase in the amount of accidents. In one particular fortnight, around this time of year in 2012, 12 fatalities occurred in London, on London's traffic network alone, from cyclists being mowed over or knocked over by HGVs. So what we need to do is enable people to have the choice, give people that flexibility and know that there are alternative routes out there. There are really good applications already out there, like CityMapper. I'm not paid by CityMapper to say, it's just an application I've happened to use when I've been in London, which can tell you actually, you know, how do you best get from point A to point B and complete your journey, and gives you lots of options. And there are other applications out there that do it very well for other areas. Smart highway applications. Now, smart highway is kind of one of the new terms, and I don't know if any of you watched the Life in the Fast Lane programme that was serialised on one of the TV channels recently, but it was quite an interesting programme, at least if you're in the industry, it's quite interesting. And it basically said that smart highways have evolved from the need to use our existing infrastructure and to be able to use a hard shoulder for normal running time, normal running operation, to extend and expand the capability and the capacity we have on our existing infrastructure. So giving people information about queues, about incidents, using technology that we have today, and passing that information through to their smartphones, through to their sat-nav systems, as you get with the likes of the Garmins and the TomToms of this world now. That's the type of application which is very real world and very now and happening as a result of the technology we have in the ground and other competitors like us have in the ground. So it's real world technology actually showing a practical use of IoT right today, not something that's 5 years. Smart parking. One of the biggest causes of congestion in our cities is that 30% of city traffic is down to congestion of people looking for parking spaces. So if you can marry up those people with available parking spaces sooner and quicker, you can make sure that you're wiping out that congestion. And that's technology that's available today. And lastly, on the 5 decongestions for tackling the pain of blocked up roads is effective journey time information. So you've all used to seeing some of those gantry signs which people have a perception that they lie, and that the highways authorities may have a vested interest in telling you porcupines about whether actually it's going to take you 15 minutes or 30 minutes, specifically around the M6 toll road, which is my personal favourite, as to whether actually the M6 is actually congested or not. But in reality is we have the information now and the systems available now to give you that information to tell you between point A and point B it's going to take you that time, and enable you as a road user to make an informed decision about whether you want to choose that route or go an alternative route or ask your sat-nav to recalculate. So with that in mind, the technology is there, but the reality is, do people really want to make that choice and make that change? This is where I'll hand over to Stephen.
Well, as Wayne said, once upon a time, I was a politician. If you doubt it, Google me. You'll find a YouTube of me crashing the medium-price car on Top Gear. Before I was a politician, I was a technologist like you folks. And of course, in your world, the problems of the world can be solved with technology, and most of the problems of the world can be solved with technology. But between where we are now and the implementation of that technology usually stands a politician, because it has to be paid for. And in particular in the roads in this country, unless you happen to be on the M6 toll road, which is the only private road in the entire country, every other road is funded from taxes. And so a politician at some point has to be held accountable for how the money gets spent. And the difficulty with that is that the politician has to be able to understand what the output is going to be from that expenditure, has to have a view as to whether he or she is going to be able to get re-elected after having made that expenditure. I don't know whether any of you have ever heard of a politician called Enrique Peñalosa. Enrique, in 1998, was elected to be mayor of Bogota. At that time, you could not move in Bogota. The roads were constantly congested. You couldn't breathe the air. People parked anywhere. It was chaos. And the people of Bogota elected Enrique specifically to fix that problem. They wanted a transport system that would allow the traffic to flow, would allow them to travel around the city, and they wanted to be able to breathe the air. And Enrique did it brilliantly. He restricted the flow of private vehicles into the town centre. He controlled parking. He introduced cycleways, so there was a cheap way for people on low incomes to travel around the city. He did it brilliantly. He transformed the situation, and they kicked him out in 3 years. Why? Because Enrique forgot that the people will often will the ends, but without willing the means. And when I say people, I mean all of us in this room. I like this guy in the car. If we say to him when he's sitting in a traffic jam, what can we do about it? He'll say, if only they'd make public transport better, we could all get the bus. And what he means really is, if they'd make public transport better, all these other people could get on the bus, and I'd be able to carry on driving my car. None of us actually want to make the changes in our life and the way that we operate that would allow the things we want to see to actually happen. And so if we're going to implement the sort of technologies that Wayne has talked about, and we're going to develop what we call smart mobility in a smart city, you have to do it in a way that the politicians can get behind and the public will understand and see the benefits of. And if you don't package it in that way, it will just never happen. So we at Clearview have come up with what we think are 8 steps to smart mobility. We've decided, first of all, it needs to be affordable, because there is no big pot of money anywhere for doing any of this. It has to be scalable, because nobody can afford to do it all at once. You have to be able to build up to it over a period of time. It has to be visible, so the public can actually see you are doing something with their taxes, that you are actually investing in something that will actually make their lives and their commute better. And it has to be empowering. And what do we mean by empowering? We believe people appreciate best the technologies they personally interact with. So if the things just happen, if the traffic just starts flowing, they won't really appreciate as much as if they can actually interact with something. When you get on your smartphone or your app or your sat-nav and you're actually interacting with it and planning your journey, and you can see that you are actually asking for information and getting that information back, you appreciate it far more. You are empowered. empowered to actually make those changes to the way you commute, and you appreciate the benefits of what's been done for you. So, first step, if you are running a city or a town in this country, first question you've got to ask yourself is, should you be buying the hardware or should you just be buying the data? You can buy the hardware. Clearview and other companies will sell you boxes that will actually do a lot of this. It's capital expenditure. You then have to maintain it. You have to keep it working. The alternative to that, though, is just buy the data from somebody else who's going to put all of that hardware in place, somebody else who's going to make that big capital expenditure, so that you can just get on with the job of managing the traffic in your city. Now, in the public sector, you quite often have capital but not revenue, and you can't veer between the two. That will have an influence on the decision. But if you have got revenue and not capital, think about getting the data from somebody, buying data as a service rather than buying the boxes. Then identify your current data streams, because I absolutely guarantee every town and every city in this country already has some data streams. Somebody somewhere is already collecting data. It might be the bus company. It might be your local traffic control centre collecting some information from some of the traffic signals. Identify the existing legacy systems that are there, because you need to actually start from as low a point as possible, and that's what you've got already. Integrate those current data systems, and Clearview has technologies that will help you pull the information from those different various systems together and provide that data in a usable form. Then identify the gaps in the system. You've now got a foundation for a system that will work in your town or your city, but it'll have gaps in it. Ask yourself where those gaps are. Is it the flow of particular public transport systems? Is it particular traffic signals? Is it environmental data? What are the gaps where you actually need to deploy some new systems and start gathering data? Then make that data accessible, because you're not going to be able to do it all yourself, but you guys are. I bet many of you in this room, if you had access to that sort of data, would start developing apps and technologies that the public could make use of. You'd start putting them on your smartphones. You'd start putting them on people's sat-navs. You'd probably provide this information through digital radio and through other systems. You'd leverage the value of the data and produce new systems that people could make use of. Then start bringing in new apps, such as on-demand vehicles. If you've got this information, there are all sorts of new technologies and new ways that it could be implemented. Leveraging it. Once you've got the traffic data, once you know where the traffic is flowing in your city, combine that with meteorological data, and it's very easy to predict where the pollution hotspots in your city are going to be and when they're going to be. A particular set of climatic conditions at the same time as a particular level of traffic, and you will know that there's going to be a particular pollution hotspot. And then you can change the flow of traffic signals around around the city to avoid that, to make sure that hotspot doesn't appear. That's leveraging the data. You didn't collect any pollution data. You predict this from a model based on your traffic data. You're getting extra value from the data that you've collected. And then the final step, this is the one that the politicians will want, you publicize the benefits to citizens. You actually have to get your hands dirty and work with the politicians to explain how you've spent their money, the citizens' money, and the benefits the citizens have got for it. Because at the end of the day, it's those politicians who are going to provide you with more funding as you go forward. So this is a smart city. It'll include real-time data collection and analysis, optimizing traffic flows and controlling signals. It'll have real-time information for road users delivered through signage, through sat-navs, through the radio, through the internet, through all the various channels that we can provide that information through. It'll have real-time pollution detection and the ability to create models that can predict where that pollution is going to be and change traffic flows in order to avoid those pollution hotspots. It'll have automatic detection of road user type so that we know where cyclists are, we know where pedestrians are, and you can change particular traffic light phasing to allow the cyclists to get through the junction safely, to allow the pedestrians to get over the road safely. But then when there's no cyclists there and when there's no pedestrians there, change the traffic signals so the cars can get moving again. Don't make the cars sit there for another 2 minutes because you've got a fixed timing on your traffic signal. Real-time car parking occupancy detection and directing cars to the most convenient space. A guy a professor in Los Angeles has worked out that there is a 15-block area of Los Angeles where the wasted miles every year by people looking for a parking space is the equivalent of driving to the moon and back. You know, that's how much carbon we are pumping into the air driving around cities looking for a parking space. If we could go straight to an available parking space, we wouldn't be doing that anymore. And then you can use active lighting management, solar road studs, and solar signage to conserve energy. So these are all elements of smart mobility in a smart city that can be done today. They can be leveraged, they can provide connectivity, they can provide data into that other people can use to develop new applications and get more value out of what we're producing. But at the end of it, promote the benefits. That means getting involved with Boris and Dave and all of those. I mean, once upon a time, I used to have to take the blame for traffic. Now I can blame them. But you know, if your city fathers have made an investment in doing this sort of implementing this sort of technology, help them publicize it, because that's how you will make sure that you drive culture change, ensure citizens can see their taxes were spent on something that they actually can benefit from, and that the politicians are comfortable with investing in this in the future so that they can produce congestion reducing strategies and cut CO2. And I'll just leave you with that thought. That could have been Enrique Peñaloza, because he didn't realize that you need to make these things empowering and you need to do things in the way that the public want and that politicians will help politicians get re-elected. He got kicked out. You need to make sure that that doesn't happen when you're introducing smart mobility into your city. That's it. That's all we've got.
Thank you very much.